In the password generator video, we looked at the concept of arrays, and we used this prop of a medication container to demonstrate how they work. In this video, we're going to be working towards making a magic 8-ball, which is going to have about 20 options. So to get to that point, we need to think about what happens when we have more items or less items in the array that we first start with. So we need to introduce the length method. So let's demonstrate. In the previous video, we used this idea of a dice roll to say, okay, in this case, I want to grab the item inside that index, or it would be this one. Now, what happens if we add one item or another onto the end of our array? If we still have this concept of rolling a random number between 1 and 6, we are never going to be able to access the items in these two at the end. So what we need is something a bit more flexible, because our array length, that is how many items are in our array, may change throughout the program. We started with 6, and at this point in the program we have 8, but we might even get to a point in the program where there's only 2 items in the array. So we need the length property to give us the flexibility that we need. Let's look at this with a program. To demonstrate the length property, I'm going to start with one of the arrays we used in the password video. I'm just going to do this in JavaScript to keep it as simple as possible. So we use the var keyword, the variable or array in this case is called noun, and it's assigned these values that are inside square brackets. So we can see what that looks like if we output. And we get all of the items, and as we did last time, we could put anywhere between 0 through to 6. Now, what happens if we put in 7? At this point, we get an undefined because there's no 7th item. So what we want to see is, what does the length property give us? So if I said, what is noun dot length, and that gives us something that we can work with. That gives us the figure of 7. So that is saying that there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 items in this array. Now there can be some confusion when we're saying, well, 0 based index, we've got 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's the index we use to retrieve the items. This length tells us how many items are in there, and there is physically 7 items in there. So what do we do with this? Well, we can say pick a random number between 0 and 7. So what that would look like. Well, let's go back to the random number generator that we used last time. Alright, so we're just going to output the value of randnum. At this point, it's a random number between 0 and 7. And so, if we took away some of these items, we're going to have a problem when we actually try to output. So what we did last time is we said output this, and instead of putting a 0 through to a 7 inside the square brackets, put in this random number generator. So that is working. But if we took away 5 of these items, you'll see that we're going to have a problem. It works sometimes. It works fine when it's picking 0 or 1. Anything larger, it's saying undefined. So what's happening is that there's items here that aren't defined to the program, that are bigger than 0 and 1. So the length property gives you the flexibility that when your array changes, it doesn't matter. So instead of saying times 7, we want to multiply it by, create a new variable, I'll call it len equals noun dot length, and just to check, I'll put that inside our output. Okay, so it's now saying we've only got 2 items in this array. So if we put this variable as our multiplier, instead of hard coding how many items we have in our array, we can make it flexible. Okay, so that works with 2 items, and if we put back our other items, the program will still work because it's flexible with the amount of items that are in the array. If I add 2 more items, the program is still running and it is picking those new items up. And just as a final check, if we take out these items, we are getting, the program is working because this length property gives us the flexibility to allow the array to expand or contract. Now, what are some more things we can do with arrays? What might happen is that our program starts with 3 items, we might want to add 2 items to the array. So you can do it manually, but you might want to make an event happen. Somebody clicks on a button, or the mouse moves in a certain way, or they tap or they swipe, something like that, to add 2 new items. We're going to use the push method. So if I said we've already declared noun as a variable, so we don't need the var keyword anymore, we now have it established. The program knows that noun is a variable. So now we can say noun.push, and we can see now, if we output noun at this point of the program, those first 3 items have been added, those last 3 items have been added to the first 3 items to give a total of 6. So that's the push method. We started with 3 items at this point inside this array called noun, and we output that to see what it looks like. Then the next stage of the program said, push these 3 items into the array and output. We don't need this anymore. And then we remove the last item. So there are instances where you will want to do this, and that will become more clear to you as we go develop further.